Windsor West.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Education. Last week's budget clearly indicates that the government isn't spending $430 million already allocated for education. The minister claims that this is not a cut to education. Well, Speaker, Ontario families know that less money spent on education amounts to a cut, and cuts always drastically impact our most vulnerable students. The result? Schools in Belleville, Milton and London that provide specialized supports to some of our most vulnerable students with exceptional learning and developmental needs may be forced to close. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe all children deserve equal access to education. Why is this Minister of Education making life harder for our most vulnerable students?
Thank you. Minister of Education.
Yes, so a couple of different issues getting mixed about here. Let's talk a little bit about provincial schools for a minute, and then we'll go back to the whole issue of cuts. Number one, there is no change in funding in this budget that we've made to provincial schools. But what we have discovered when we look at the data is that some of the provincial schools, Speaker, have very low enrollment. Some, like the provincial school for the blind in your hometown of Brantford, has a lot of students. The schools in Milton, the schools in Belleville for the deaf have quite healthy enrollment. But we have other provincial schools where there's only 11 children left in attendance. We have another provincial school where there's only 19, and the projections for next year are either lower. But at that point, we have a responsibility to look at the programs and figure out how we can best deliver programs for the sake of the children.
Thank you.
It's got nothing to do with money.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Against the minister. The minister should know that decreased enrollment does not mean decreased needs. Ontario families are tired of hearing this government scapegoating their underfunding of education while our most vulnerable students pay the price. This government is taking real dollars out of education, and real kids are being impacted. The potential closure of provincial demonstration schools for students with severe learning disabilities, as well as schools for the deaf, means our most vulnerable kids will be left with few options to gain equal access to an education. We've received emails and phone calls from children with unique needs. They are begging this government to not close institutions designed to help them succeed. Will the minister finally admit that pulling $430 million from education is not in the best interest of students?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, in fact, Speaker, we haven't pulled $430 million out of education funding. If you look at our funding, we have increased funding by $8.1 billion, and that continues to be true. The budget, in fact, if you look at the budget documents, you will find, Speaker, that the increase in the budget in my ministry has been 1.2% on average each and every year. That's what the budget document says. That will continue to be the case. We are increasing the funding for education. For example, she's trying to tell us that we cut the money last year for schools. Do you know what we did in this year in which we cut money, according to her?
Answer.
We spent $498 million for 30 new schools and for 26 additions and renovations.
Thank you.